So the summer 2024 transfer window is almost up. Today is deadline day as I record this for those clubs in Europe and of course the clubs in the Premier League as well. But I wanted to have a look at some of the worst transfers in football history because deadline day is particularly apparent for something like this because clubs seem to get desperate, they start to run out of time, they throw a couple more million on the price tag in the hope that they get the deal done, and sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't. Sometimes that ends up being a great decision and sometimes it ends up being a terrible decision. But let's have a look at some of the worst signings in football history in my opinion, because all these players pretty much signed for incredibly high price tags and it just did not work out for them. Transfers are a gamble because even if you have a player that is very good, it performs at different clubs, when they come to your club, things might not work out. And that's certainly the case for the first pick on this list, Philippe Coutinho. Now, Coutinho joined from Liverpool, to Barcelona for around £121 million, which puts him firmly as one of the most expensive signings of all time at the time, and still one of the most expensive signings to this day. He signed for that ridiculous price tag. I mean, yeah, don't get me wrong, he was a very good player for Liverpool. I really liked him. I thought he was very talented and I thought, yeah, he's going to kick on at Barcelona and do very well. But it did not work out like that. Just 25 goals and 14 assists in 106 appearances for Barcelona. And in fact, his most impactful kind of moments, really, or his most impactful seasons at Barcelona were actually when he was on loan at other clubs. He ended up knocking out or contributing to Barcelona being knocked out of the Champions League in 2019-20. Remember that? I think it was an 8-2 victory for Bayern Munich over Barcelona. And also on top of that as well, he had a lot of success at Bayern, he won trophies and everything, and as well, he went to Aston Villa on loan too and did very well there as well. So yeah, and he's still actually on Villa's books to this day. He's just on loan at Vasco da Gama in Brazil. Next up, another Barcelona signing, and I say this is a bit of a Barcelona fan. I've always had a bit of affinity for the club and for the city as well. Love going there, great city, definitely do recommend if you've never been. But in terms of football signings, sometimes they do hit wide of the mark, and that's definitely applicable to Antoine Griezmann as well. He signed from Atletico Madrid for over £100 million, signing from one of their key rivals in La Liga, a striker that was lethal at Atletico. You'd think it'd be an amazing signing, but it just did not work out at all. He was so bad at Barcelona. 35 goals and 17 assists in 102 appearances might not seem so bad, but for Barcelona, compared to the people that are around him and everything, it's not really good enough. But the worst part about this is what happened after it, how he ended up signing back for Atletico Madrid. There was a clause in his contract that allowed him to go back to Atletico for £54 million, and with certain conditions like playtime and stuff like that. And Atletico, they activated it, and effectively they made a £50 million profit on the guy in one season. Comes back to Atletico, and again, he's quality. So just a terrible signing for Barcelona with that. But I tell you what, I think this is probably the worst of the lot. Eden Hazard to Real Madrid. Now, I love Hazard, and I feel so sorry for him. I am not blaming him at all with this one. It's just tragic how he signs for over £100 million. That's the initial fee. It eventually rose to around £135 million, €150 million. Well, again, one of the most expensive players in the history of football. He signed for Real Madrid. He seemed as though this was going to be a dream move for the guy, but it turned out to be an absolute nightmare for him. 7 goals, 12 assists, and the reason why is because he got injured pretty much straight away. I think he got injured in one of his first games for Real Madrid and just never recovered, and he retired the other year as well. It was really sad, to be honest, because if you saw him at Chelsea, this guy was a borderline world-class player. He was so good in the Premier League for the Blues. But someone who has not been so good for the Blues, so at least recently anyway, is Romelu Lukaku. This is his second signing for Chelsea because he's had several stints at the club. He signed for nearly £100 million for his current stint, and now he's just signed for Napoli, gone back to Italy for around £30 million. So this is around a £70 million loss that Chelsea have made on Lukaku. And again, I think he's a really good player, but it just does not work out for him in this stint. But he's only got himself to blame. The guy basically blamed the fans and alienated them with an interview he did at the start of his second season there. I mean, 15 goals, 3 assists for a guy who cost nearly £100 million as a striker. it just does not work out for him. And he's only got himself to blame on this one, I believe, because, again, really good player, but just, yeah, useless at Stamford Bridge in this current season. But then again, Chelsea make a real habit of spending a lot of money on bad players. That's been happening for a long time, but Todd Boehly has well and truly accelerated that since he took over a couple of years ago. And the final of these dishonourable transfers is none other than Andy Carroll to Liverpool back in the day. £35 million he cost the Reds, and yeah, he did not justify that price tag. He was bought in initially because of Fernando Torres going over to Chelsea, £50 million, and £35 million of that was reinvested in Andy Carroll. Now, this was back in 2011, so £35 million back then is like £100 million now probably in football. He was just not good enough, simple as that. He was a good player, I think, to be honest. I don't think he was a terrible player, but he was never going to be a star man for Liverpool. 11 goals and 6 assists during his time at Liverpool. It was never going to work out for him. He's just not that level of player. Interestingly though, Liverpool did bring in a certain Luis Suarez for £15 million. So it showed that they did get a bargain buy. If they just got Suarez and not got Carroll and just spent more money on someone else, perhaps, they would have been alright for him. But yeah, Carroll was not the main man at Liverpool. He was never going to be the main man. Real poor choice, unfortunately, for the Reds. But they seem to be doing better in the transfer window these days. So yeah, there you go, guys. Those are 5 of the worst football transfers of all time, in my opinion. What is your pick for the worst football transfer of all time? Let us know your thoughts in the comments below. And of course, keep it subscribed, like, share, comment, all that good stuff to see much more football content here on thefootballchronicle.com.